All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 108 of the Hideout, where we will be discussing all things Web3 gaming and the Metaverse. We have another great panel this week of builders in the space who are doing some awesome things. I was just checking out both projects and really cool stuff going on. And I see some new faces in the crowd. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Nick Frontera. I am one of the founders and the CEO of Apollo Entertainment, the company behind the Satoshiverse and the Legion's 2029 game. We've been building Satoshiverse for about 5 years now, almost coming up. It was one of the original superhero IPs in the blockchain space. Did a ton of really cool comic NFTs in collaboration with former Marvel and DC comic artist Jose Delbo before expanding into creating our gaming universe, the Satoshiverse, with our flagship Legion's 2029 game. Check out, if you guys are interested in that, we've got a pinned tweet at the top of the spaces. It goes into detail. The important stuff is that it's free to play PC game. It's a hack and slash. We took inspiration from games like God of War and mixed those in with some play mechanics, some RPG mechanics from games like Diablo with progression, and then some mechanics from games like Hades with their roguelike mechanic, and kind of mosh that all together into a fully enabled Web3 game that kind of focuses on our story of Satoshi returning to lead a rebellion against the defenders of fiat, and the rest is history. So I don't want to ruin it for you. We've got a ton of cool initiatives going on. We have a free battle pass where you can get lots of prizes. Check it out. It's free to play. Like I said, PC game. All the information is up there. But without further ado, I want to jump over to our panelists. So what we'll do is I'll call on you guys by the project name. Give us a quick intro of what you are building, and who you are and how you got into the space, if you'd like. I can say from my side, I got into the space in 2017. Before that, I was working as a lawyer in the entertainment industry. And so kind of career took a curveball, and then took a turn when I learned about NFTs, kind of took the red pill and haven't looked back. So very excited to be here with all of you. Oh, one other housekeeping item. If you have, gameplay footage or videos in the form of a tweet that you think would be interesting to share, please do feel free to pin them to the top of the spaces. We love to see it. So yeah, definitely feel free. Why don't we start with our friends at Honeyland? Welcome to the spaces.
Hey, what's going on, guys? You got Corey here behind. Actually, I'm not behind the Honeyland account. I'm on my own account, but yeah, representing Honeyland. I am one of the co-founders, CEO of Hexagon Studios. We are the team behind Honeyland. It's a mobile play and earn game built on Solana. I'd say at a high level, what we're really striving to build is mobile crypto games with rewarded gameplay. Game styles like play to earn, risk to earn, really trying to lean into a lot of just kind of financial, economic games and rewarded gameplay and yeah. So that's kind of what we're building. Honeyland is our flagship title, and we've got a couple other games that we're working on now to kind of expand the gaming ecosystem. So excited to be here.
Amazing. Well, definitely excited to learn more. And I saw some cool videos on your Twitter. So while I was looking at stuff, so definitely feel free to post some stuff up there if you'd like. Let's jump over to Project O. Welcome to the spaces.
Hey. Yeah, I'm Epix. I work on Project O. I do handle community, creators, marketing, a little bit of everything. We are working on a trading card game, which has been, I think, in development for over 3 years now. The team has been working on, the studio has been working on games for over 3 years now. Yeah, we plan on having a closed alpha in 2 months. And there's currently, we have a small, we call it a collector's campaign. If you're holding NFTs, mostly gaming NFTs, but also some other NFTs, you can sign up. It's and you get some free rewards, which is it's similar to like what Infinigods did with their Valhalla campaign. So no downside. You can potentially win some pretty rare like cards from us, some cool assets. So yeah, so much about us.
Super cool. Well, I'm definitely a big fan of trading card games. I grew up playing Magic the Gathering, so definitely excited for you guys to share more about what you're building and to dive into these questions we've got today. Let's hop over to Spencer to get us started and introduce himself.
Hello, hello. What's going on, everyone? My name is Spencer Vogel. I am the business development manager here with Satoshiverse and Apollo Entertainment. Excited to be here, and I'm going to be asking the questions on today's space. Also, if any of you were here last week, my voice is back. So, very grateful for that. First thing I'm going to do is, I'm going to pin a tweet to the top of the space. So every week on the Hideout, we do a giveaway. And this week we are giving away 5 Satoshi's crystals, which is one of the main in-game resources, within the Satoshiverse, necessary in order to upgrade your in-game items and your avatars. Really important resource. So definitely something you want to have. In order to enter the giveaway, all you have to do is repost that tweet that I pinned to the top of the space that says we're live, and then stick around until the end of the space, and then we'll choose our winner. So good luck to everyone, and hope we get a good winner here. Moving into the format of the space. So we're going to start out with a group question. I will call on someone to start, and then feel free to just jump in from there to the discussion. No need to raise your hand or anything like that. We can kind of keep it free form, kind of flowing discussion. And then we'll move into some individual questions for each of you guys. And then if we have time at the end, we'll do some more group questions. So that is pretty much it. And if there's no questions, without further ado, we'll get into the first question here. I think let's have Honeyland start us off on this one. And the question is, what do you think will be the biggest catalyst for mainstream adoption of Web3?
Yeah, super good question. I would say two things. Obviously, bull markets always help. It just steers a ton of attention. I think it's a attention economy. I think the more attention we can get on this, the better. But I also think that AI agents are going to be a big part of this. I think a lot of people, especially in gaming, are starting to think about like how AI agents can really help us, automate our gameplay or earn while we sleep, and or help to kind of watch our gameplay and make us more efficient. And I think all of those are really, really cool utilities for AI agents. But I think the thing that's being missed right now is that there is so much ability for us to speak in normal language to an AI agent and have it do very complex things for us that would normally be like a layer of friction into Web3. So, for instance, right now we can set up an AI agent to go do really pretty complex like trading mechanics on our own end. It can set up wallets, it can move funds, it can act on a series of decisions. But if we take this one step earlier and we say, well, how would I even start to think about like getting a crypto wallet? We're all crypto natives, but for somebody who's not in Web3 currently, I think the ability to converse with an agent and say, cool, go set up a wallet for me and take money from my bank account, put it in this wallet, and then go register an account for me on a game, I think is something that just creates a massive opportunity. I think AI agents will also start to make this idea of kind of swapping between chains, between currencies, between games, between accounts. We'll start to just do all that stuff for us. And so I think when we remove a lot of that friction, I've always said that like one of the biggest threats to Web3 gaming is the fragmentation. There are so many chains, so many games, so many accounts. Everybody has their own token. And we're all doing this as a land grab. But at the end of the day, it's really hurting our ability to get mass adoption for people to just come in, and own a PlayStation and throw one game in one console and, have a very consistent set of kind of inputs to reach that content. Right now, it's so fragmented. And so I think AI agents are really going to simplify this process for Web3 gamers, but also for people wanting to get in. I'd say that's probably the thing that I'm most bullish on.
Apex, you want to jump in?
Yeah, for sure. I think one thing I am looking forward to might be less actual catalyst, but like we've seen OptiGrid do it to some extent, where they were able to get a lot of the biggest streamers to stream a crypto game without, getting too much backslash through it. And while this was, very short lasted, and of course after the partnerships ended, the viewership dropped, and there's not that many people streaming off the grid anymore. But I think what I'm really hoping that we achieve that, hopefully this year, for example, that some game is just going to be on Twitch, or it doesn't matter really about the platform, where people continuously stream it without, having an incentive to do so, like a direct being paid to stream it necessarily, and just having this game out there basically on the billboard, no drama, no backslash about being crypto, just people enjoying the game, people streaming it. As I said, like this continuous viewership and engagement, just because the game is very good and the game, like people has a lot of concurrent players, a lot of daily active users. I think that's something which we just don't really have in crypto. Like if we get it, it's usually similar to how off the grid did it, like around some activation, some partnerships where studios have to throw out a lot of money to get those viewers and to get that engagement. And I think we need to get to a point where this just happens naturally because we have really good games in the space.
Yeah, I totally agree with both of you. I mean, I think that, the idea that bull markets drive adoption, really has a lot of branches to it. If you think about, what it really means. Obviously, as you look at news coverage and the types of things that are making it out to the public, um, for better or for worse, obviously there's a lot more news about crypto during the bull market, and people pay a bit more attention because of that. I think that obviously that has led to quite a degree of financialization about pretty much every experience in crypto. And I think that certain places it makes a ton of sense, certain places it may not. But I do, what I would say is that bull markets also tend to create liquidity and funding for projects to continue to move the space forward. And so when you see, the last bull market, VCs and communities pouring tons of money into Web3 gaming to allow some of the experimentation that has now resulted in, some of these projects that are just releasing their alphas after a few years of development. I think those are the types of shifts that we see during good markets and during, positive sentiment about the space. I think, for me, independent from that, I think the catalyst for Web3 will be, as Apex was saying, will be a game. I think it'll be a game that may or may not come from the Web3 space, and I think there's kind of an important role that we all have as Web3 builders, not just to prove out the consumer use cases of Web3, but also to prove out the business and commercial use cases of Web3, and provide solid reasons why Web3 expands the pot, and why even AAA studios should be looking at using Web3 in certain aspects of their games to enhance those games, and not only just to give players more rights and abilities, which was kind of the original thesis of Web3, but to create ownability standards for digital assets that kind of can persist, right? And can persist in a more digital future, and a more digital age. And I think people are going to want that. But, for me, the best thing that we can do, and part of this is what I think Corey was getting at as well with the friction points, is back end a lot of the Web3 elements. Don't put it in someone's face that they're playing a Web3 game. And we've seen that approach before, and we've seen it work. I think we're going to see that approach a lot more as we start to look at, AAAs and bigger budget games implementing Web3 rails behind them. As we start to talk about, PlayStation and the Sonium blockchain, and how we're going to see kind of seamless transaction, seamless wallet integration whether that's through AI agents or if it's just something that's being automated on the blockchain level. I think reducing the friction points is likely going to have some, hybridization of decentralization, and we're going to start to see kind of models emerge where it's, Web 2.5 or Web 2.75, but it's going to provide that ownability layer and transferability layer with a lot more seamless infrastructure. And I think once we have that, then you just need to prove out the business use case. And I think that's a challenge. I mean, I think it's a challenge for any major gaming studio to take a risk with one of their core titles and put Web3 behind it, and especially with the sentiment and everything. And that's why people talk about maybe Web3 being in GTA 6, and there's been some talks of an economy. We'll see, right? I'd be very welcome to that, but it would be a surprise to me. But we're going to see how that evolves, and I think what we're going to see is that when games start back-ending it, when they find the value add for them, for the bottom line, right, that the board of directors gets comfortable with, we're going to see a lot more adoption of Web3 in gaming. I know when we built Legions, back in 2021, a lot of these rails didn't exist, right? You basically had two choices. You were building on mainnet, Ethereum, or you were building on Polygon, really was the main one. And you were inventing a lot of the rails yourself. The difference in infrastructure now is 100-fold, right? You have tons of companies that have built the rails for gaming studios to be able to do it from a technical standpoint and make it fairly seamless. You have account abstraction. You have, wallets that you don't need to sign for. You have custodial solutions. You have the whole gambit. But I think the challenge is proving out a sustainable business use case. And I think there are some theories, and there's some places where it works way better than others, where, real skill-based gaming, where, you can use trustless ways of settling bets or paying out prizes. Gambling is another one, that you can use proofs to enhance the transparency of the gambling. I think that as we move into other genres, you still have to prove out why does adding Web3 create more value, right? Value in the dollars and cents terms. And then you'll start to see more developers actually incorporate it. But I think that's the direction we're heading in, and it's promising to see. I just, the bull market it kind of puts fuel on that fire from a funding perspective and an interest perspective on the, studio side. And so, in order to see all that, it kind of all has to happen at the same time, like it did in 2021. And it feels like that's the direction we're going. So, I'm cautiously optimistic that we're going to see a lot of that in the near future.
Does anyone have anything to respond to that before we move on to our individual questions here?
No, I'll pipe in with one thing. I think a lot of what you said was really important, or like totally accurate. I also think that like we have to really start to define Web3 gaming, because I think we put it in too close of a bucket to like Web2 gaming, that it has to, if you have skins and guns and characters, then it's a game. But I think that if we expand the aperture a little bit and start looking at Pumped Up Fun as a game, and Poly Markets as a game, and Magic Eden as a game, like minting NFTs, buying meme coins, like these are Web3 games today. And so I think that, we start to think about like massive onboarding. I think a lot of it's already happening. We're just looking in something that has DAUs as a traditional game that has a character and a login and a quest and an XP system. And we're too narrowly defining what Web3 games are. I think Web3 games of the future are not going to look like Web2 games with tokenized assets. I think they're going to look very different in the way that they really play on this kind of financial opportunity, risk reward, frequent outcomes. And I think that we can build that into games. We saw Cambria just launch a live, MOBA that was like a risk to earn MOBA. I think that's a really, really cool way to kind of bring Web3 into a traditional Web2 game. We'll see a lot of that. But I think the bigger part of Cambria that made it special and unique is the risk to earn component, not the MOBA component. MOBAs have existed for, over a decade. And so I think if we just expand the aperture to what Web3 gaming really is and what the future of Web3 gaming looks like, I think that we'll start to see that we really have reached quite a bit of mass adoption already. Not like mass adoption. I think there's a lot more opportunity to come in, but I think we're already on the way there if we just expand the aperture and start building games for more for degens than for gamers. I think gamers really want, either a keyboard or a controller in their hand. They see that as a traditional model, and the financial opportunity is not really why they're in it. I think most people in Web3 games are in it. And by the way, we saw this play out. Regardless of how many people told you that they cared about the art back in 2021 when they were minting NFTs, they did not give a shit about the art. They cared about what it did for their bags. And if the bags went up, they loved the NFT. If bags went down, they hated the project. And that was cut and dry. And we've been exposed, kind of the tide rolled out. And we realized that nobody had trunks on. Nobody really cared about the art. We just cared about financial gain. And I think Web3 games really need to understand that in a massive way and build opportunities for players that they can come experience gaming opportunities in that realm. It doesn't have to look like a traditional game to feel like Off the Grid is not the only way that you can build a Web3 game. I think Pump.Fun is a much larger Web3 game. It's already live. People are playing it every single day, and we're just not calling it a game for some reason.
Yeah, I think I agree with a lot of that. I think that there is this opportunity to genre define, right, through what we're building in Web3 gaming. And I do think that there is this kind of not insignificant, probably very significant genre that does cater kind of to the current degen Web3 population, and really anyone who fits that profile who, may have been onboarded in the past as, the NFT Moon Boys, and now is coming in kind of on the Pump.Fun side. I do ultimately think that there is going to be a great degree of regulation there that just isn't there. I think we're going to see, for example, Pump.Fun get significant regulatory attention in the coming months and years if it survives. But I think that's probably for the better. I think the challenge with, I think, labeling something that is gambling a game is that then it's a gambling game, right? And then there's all sorts of risks and things that have to be disclosed. There's registrations that have to be done. So I do think there's probably a lot of Web3 games that are kind of teetering on the edge of, we're styling this as a game because if we didn't, it would, be a casino. And then I think that there's DeFi protocols that do the same thing. I think that there's an appetite for that. I definitely do. I think that as long as people are making money, there's an appetite for it. I don't know how sustainable it will be unless we make it sustainable, right? Unless we build models that actually support long-term growth. I mean, I think the NFT boom was a really good example. I think the exact same thing could easily happen with Pump.Fun and meme coins and games that kind of lean into that meta. We saw it with Axie and some of these other games that really struggled after kind of an initial boom. And I know that, there's going to be that genre. That genre is a totally addressable market, which is kind of these financialized games. And I like them. I mean, I think they're cool. I don't think, personally, I think that will represent a small segment of what will eventually be the transaction volume of Web3 gaming if kind of my personal thesis plays out. I think, those types of games, just like casino games, address a very particular niche, and it's a niche that makes a ton of sense. But obviously, the gaming market is much bigger, and in theory, we're going to be able to fundamentally improve different parts of the gaming market using Web3. But yeah, I mean, I'm kind of excited for these new genres, whether it's these financial games, which are, like you said, even I would also kind of say that some of these DeFi protocols like Pump.Fun do have a gamified element to them. I think they definitely avoid gaming because then they'd get, more scrutiny on them. But they are gamified. And then I think you have the kind of the other side of the equation, which is, what's it going to take to get AAAs to start using Web3 as a backbone to their in-game economies, which I think is where we probably see, if this all works, we probably see 90% of the transaction volume in the future. Just because that's what 90% of the players are, playing are this subset of popular games, and they're not all made by AAA studios, of course. They have different degrees of success. I think gaming's obviously going to change. So the ways that we're seeing, the digital economy, incorporated are going to change. I think we're going to see new use cases pop up. But yeah, I mean, I definitely agree that we shouldn't be limited in thinking about how Web3 and gaming can kind of coexist, like what that Venn diagram looks like, and where that can happen. Because I do think today the opportunity 100% is to amplify, the metas that are already so persistent in the space and to kind of latch onto them. People like to do that. People like to gamble. People like to, for better or for worse, make charts go up and down and reap the rewards of that. And all that does have a gamified element to it, to the extent that it's being done in proper ways. So yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely going to be an angle that's going to work. And hopefully, I think the challenge there will just be ensuring that it's sustainable and that we don't see kind of the same flaming out that we've seen, with a lot of this meta over the years in each cycle.
Awesome. Well, I think that is a good time to move us on to individual questions here. Um, and the first one is going to go to Apex at Project O. So how do you think Web3 can enable a better gameplay experience for card games compared to traditional physical card games or Web2 digital card games?
So we have a few big ideas around how we wanna use crypto to like enhance like the collecting experience especially. Um I think comparing it to physical is a bit tough because like it's very hard to mimic the psychology of opening a physical trading card pack compared to like a digital one. Because it's just a completely different vibe. But I think the Pokemon TCG kind of showed it how you can still make like a trading card game, which is like it's basically the main attraction of the game is just opening packs and collecting all the cards possible. Um, so we kind of want to put a big emphasis on the collecting experience, which is like having um like a mix of off-chain and on-chain cards. So you can keep your cards off-chain, you can push them on-chain when you, you really love them, they're super rare, and then when they're on-chain, they're kind of contributing to a collector score. And this is like a whole standalone experience in our game, which is basically just about like you having a leaderboard, and the more cards and the rarer your cards are, the more points you get, and then this has like a whole like its own meta cycle besides just actually playing the game, competing, and trying to score on a leaderboard. There's one thing, kind of trying to like make collecting great again, basically, and kind of use crypto to enhance that. A second thing would be to um like we want to enable like high stakes play natively in our game. So kind of like taking the best from poker, where like you're always playing for stakes, and kind of like offering that opportunity to our players. So, for example, how that could look is like we play against each other, and I'm confident I'm going to win against you. I can select a card of mine and say, okay, I want to wager that card. Do you go with me? Do you also wager a card? You select one card of yours. We both agree to it, and then the winner wins both of the cards. So this is kind of like something which it's made a lot easier using crypto and also a bit more meaningful because everything is on chain, everything is recorded. And then I think the last like third part is that this goes also a bit into like making collecting great again, but like we call it on-chain stories basically, but in a lot of games, you know, people love to collect the achievements and they love to get 100% completion score in their games, and it's not just beating the game, but it's perfecting the game. And if you have an on-chain item, you can engrave like your achievements onto those cards without them being able to, like, anybody being able to delete that. So it doesn't have to be an achievement, but it can also be like, for example, you won against the world champion, and like that's something which is forever recorded on your card. So these kind of things are just crypto allows us to do that, without anybody fucking around with it and just making it very meaningful. Like the infrastructure is just more appropriate in crypto than outside of it. So those are a few things where we're kind of using crypto to enhance, like, trading card game or trading card game.
Yeah, I personally love the use case, when I see projects using smart contracts for peer-to-peer wagering, connected to their games. I think that is a major problem in the kind of current gaming industry. You don't have great ways of staking things through a trustless third party and then having kind of a mechanism of settling those bets. Obviously you need to build out the consensus mechanisms, right, to confirm things, and I think there's a lot of use cases that could stem from that. So that's super interesting, and I agree. I think one of the things that make trading card games special is that collectability element. So and I collected Pokemon cards. I don't think I ever played. I played Magic, but when I was collecting Pokemon, it was just to look at the cool pictures and to trade with my friends. I think there's also that element, right? Trading to collectability, whether it's trading, the buy and sell and collect element is so core to Web3 that it totally makes sense, for a trading card game. So I love what you guys are doing. That's super cool.
Awesome. Well, I will move us on to our next individual question, which goes to Honeyland. So what are the key factors game developers should consider when building Web3 games for mobile, especially when navigating challenges like high transaction fees and app store policies?
Yeah, so we were one of the very first like fully enabled Web3 games to get in to get approved through iOS and Google Play. We pushed to the app stores back in April 30th, 2023. So we're coming up on like 2 years now. And everything was fully enabled. You could buy HXD, which is our native cryptocurrency, as an in-app purchase on that day. You can buy and sell and trade NFTs. You could mint NFTs. You can pretty much do everything fully crypto inside of a fully approved app. And I think really one of the things that we did was on accident, we kind of built something that was App Store compliant because we had tried to build like this on-chain, off-chain architecture that was really, really important. So for us, it was about the player experience. How do we let somebody like my mom, who may not be into crypto, but may think bees are cute and she'd love to maybe come in and play this bee game, how do we help get her in? And so it was about removing that friction for anybody to start to come in. And so one of the things we did was we basically made it so that there's this basically almost everything that's taking place in the game is done through a off-chain kind of ledger that then gets settled on chain in the background. And so there's not a lot of player actions where they're actually signing signatures or doing anything on chain. It acts very much as like a Web2 game. So for instance, you could purchase HXD as an in-app purchase. I mentioned that. Let's say HXD sits right around a penny today for each token. So let's say you were to spend $1, you would expect to get 100 HXD tokens if you were just buying those through a decentralized exchange. $1 would get you $1. Well, we have to pay 30% to the App Store by making this available. So what we would do is we would give you essentially about 65 HXD in your account. You're never custodying those tokens. So we would actually collect the dollar. We would then go buy we basically send 30% to Apple. We'd take the remaining 70%. We'd go buy HXD and we'd hold it in our custodial wallet that represents the tokens that are in your account are actually being held by us. And so that was never actually a cryptocurrency. The player was essentially just buying in-game credits or tokens or whatever that are not an actual cryptocurrency. Now, they could withdraw that. They could request to withdraw, and they could then put their 65 HXD tokens on chain in their wallet. But that was now just a withdrawal transaction that had nothing to do with the App Store. And so we've thought, and you could just kind of take that same concept across everything that we do in the game. And so we do a lot of kind of custodial work to where we're custodying either assets, we're able to buy on behalf of players in like marketplaces, deduct the tokens from their account, and then actually send on-chain tokens to whoever it is that would be the seller of those. And so we've just created really, really what I would say smart architecture and unique and novel architecture to allow for this. And so what I would say is just understand kind of the App Store policies. We never hid from what we were doing. We were very upfront with Apple that we were a Web3 game, that players were minting assets. What we found from them is as long as there's a way that they can purchase the same thing in the game that they can purchase outside of the game. So they can go buy HXD on chain, they can deposit it into the game. Apple sees none of that. It's just all basically moving things around. There was never a purchase that took place. But since we have the ability to, but there is an asset there, since we created the ability to buy that same asset as an in-app purchase where Apple could get their 30% or the 30% cut, they're okay with it. And so we can have HXD as an asset. And you've seen this, by the way, with things like Spotify. This was the big lawsuit where it was like basically Spotify disabled the ability to sign up for a subscription if you inside of the Apple inside of the app because they didn't want to pay the 30% to Apple. And so they ended up in this big lawsuit and yada yada. But the idea was that Spotify would just push you to sign up on their website and then you could access it in the app. We've done very similar things, but we also have the option to basically do it in the app. We just make it more expensive. We've come up with creative ways where, you're only getting 65 HXD, which is 65% of the purchase value, but we could throw in some in-game items as like a chest of, kind of rewards where there's kind of this gotcha mechanic where you could fill in some of the 30% that's going to the App Store. We could fill in with some items in the game and stuff. So I think when building a mobile app, that's, if we're talking about like the compliance stuff, obviously building a mobile app, the type of player and the type of game and the type of mechanics are going to be very, very different. And so usually you got to think of where people are playing a game on their phone, which is, on the toilet, waiting for a friend at the restaurant, sitting on the couch, half watching TV. And so design games for those types of players versus, PC games tend to be and console games tend to be things that have a player's full attention for a long extended period of time, and mobile games don't have that. And so our goal was always to kind of build a game that kind of replicated or gave an alternative to social media, something that you could check in with for 3 to 5 minutes to up to 10 minutes at a time, do kind of everything you needed to do, then bounce to something else, and then come back a couple hours later, do the same thing. So kind of this like these regular frequent check-ins. We always said 5 to 15 check-ins a day for 5 to 15 minutes at a time. And we've actually, if you go back and look at our analytics, it's pretty close to that. We have about 7 engaged logins per day for about 7 to 8 minutes per player. And so we're right around 52 minutes is kind of our average playtime for a casual, we'll call it idle play mobile app, which is pretty incredible, but it's done through multiple check-ins throughout the day for kind of a short burst of time. So I would say the game play, and then just thinking about like how do you optimize a player experience so there's not constantly these signatures and wallet connections, and do as much of that settlement on chain in the background where you're with partial signatures and deep links, and there's certain things that you can do with smart contracts, particularly on Solana, that make it really, really easy to do all that stuff. So we can kind of obfuscate the Web3 friction, but allow all the Web3 interaction to take place, which makes us really player friendly, but also makes us very App Store friendly as well.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I think that it's interesting. Some of the draconian policies that we've seen, in the traditional space have forced projects to innovate, and sometimes, we're doing these kind of Web 2.5 innovations that are there because it's necessary, right? I know we had to do a lot of the same types of systems with our game where, things were being done on our central servers, and then we were settling things behind the scenes with crypto. And you look at Steam, still has restrictions, and you have to do stuff like that in order for on the PC gaming side too. And if you want to get into consoles right now, it's the same deal. So it's definitely, I think it's awesome. I mean, the way you guys have done it is really cool. I was looking at some of the videos of the game, and just how fluid everything is. And, that's extremely challenging to achieve if you're trying to do everything on chain in the moment with transaction signing and, all that good stuff. Just by necessity, it kind of breaks up the process. I think that, for me, the takeaway has been that true decentralization, keeping everything on chain may not be the path forward for all, if not most, Web3 games as we move forward. There's going to be elements that are much more important to have on chain than others, and to have the users essentially consenting to or signing or whatever it may be, custodying, depending on the situation. And I think that's fine. I think the more we do these spaces, the more we talk to people, that's the direction everyone's going. I don't think that was the original, fully on chain meta that kind of emerged back in the day. But I think that meta is slowly kind of dissolving, and what we're seeing is kind of an integration of or hybridization between these Web3 mechanics where we're needed and we're useful, and then more traditional mechanics where they're not useful. And so I think it's really cool. I mean, it's congrats to you guys. You got through the labyrinth of of the Apple Store, which I know has been a challenge for many.
Awesome. Well, it looks like we still have some time for a group question here. And that one is, and maybe Nick, you could have us start off on this one. I haven't had you start off yet. So in what ways does the role of community in Web3 differ from online communities in the Web2 world? And what unique opportunities do you think arise from this shift?
Right. That's a good question. I mean, I think that, the current role and the past role of communities may ultimately be a bit different than the future role of communities in Web3 gaming specifically. But at least for the last 4 years, communities have essentially been everything for Web3 projects, right? I think there's very, very few Web3 projects that have survived without, a core community that have really pushed them forward. And, I think there's a lot of reasons for that. I think even what are now the top Web3 projects kind of started small, and there was a sentiment that formed around that project. And I think part of that was through, stakeholders who had real tangible financial incentives to continue to support and spend their time and money on a project, and could be and feel like they were part of the development of that project and could contribute both with their time, their feedback, their thoughts, but also their money to making a project succeed. It almost felt like Kickstarter, on steroids, with some of these. And yeah, I do think that there were different groups, right? I think you had kind of your more degen-y crowd that was in and out of projects that were, still supporting, still helped those projects mint out, and gave the project founders the funds they needed to develop the projects they were developing. But then you had kind of your core community members who became evangelists for that project and really champion that project, even if they only had a very small, financial stake in it. And I think it just catered to different types of people and everything in between, right? And so I think from my perspective, what Web3 has done is it allows developers to incentive align with their core community from the very beginning. It gives them an opportunity to build business models and revenue models and reward models that are taking into consideration the fact that your core stakeholders are your community members. And then I think we've seen that model become mixed a little bit. We've seen IPs fundraise at very high valuations, and some of which have then become a bit more beholden to those VCs or investors that have funded them, and sometimes they lose track of their core community. We've seen projects, very big projects, disappear because of that, and I think that just speaks to, even beyond the funding, how important the core community is to kind of moving an IP forward. I think at the end of the day, every single project in Web3, either is a new IP or an IP that's just starting out and really trying to establish itself in a niche, or is licensing a more well-known IP. I mean, we've seen a lot of licensing deals, but regardless, and especially for the new IPs, that community is what allows you to survive. In our case, that community is what keeps us going, right? It's, there were 2.5, 3 years of really bad times in this space, and building through those years were in large part because of the support of the community, not just financially, but also in sentiment, in good feedback, in the fact that you felt like you were building with them. I think as we start to see capabilities expanded through AI and other improvements to the production cycle that are going to allow launching an IP to become a smaller and less costly endeavor, I think the role of a community in helping gain that initial traction is going to become exponentially more important. As I think the big VC dollars are going to continue to keep going to those proven things and the edge cases that are pushing the space forward. But I think from a content perspective, having that galvanized core community around this thing that you're trying to do is what lets it get that first step up and allows people to see it. And once it's seen, then you've got to stand on what you've built, and it's got to be solid and it's got to be great. But we've seen, even in Web3, things that aren't so great turn into really big things and then eventually become great, right, after the fact. And then really cool stuff gets done because of a community that galvanized around a concept. I think the ultimate example, and I'm an ape holder, but I think the ultimate example is the Bored Ape Yacht Club, because you saw they didn't really do a whole lot. They, for 2 years, they dropped airdrops to the community, but at the end of the day, what they did was they fostered this really strong sense of belonging and cohesion, and they had fun events, but it was all community oriented. And then, Peak Bowl, they turned it into a business, and now they're developing a bunch of different things, and it's growing, and Yuga's becoming a real company with founders who brought in lots of help, and you're seeing all this stuff develop. But that developed out of a community. That didn't develop out of an incredible IP. That didn't develop out of incredible art. That developed out of a community that was just, totally 100% bought in and willing to go to the end and really embrace this new identity of being an ape. And so, yeah, I guess that's I'll let everyone else chime in, but I think community is key. Community is the ticket here.
Yeah, community is 100% the key. And you look at this, the beauty of the Bored Apes, like you said, the beauty of just look at meme coins today. Like if you look at the biggest, like the real meme coins, literally the product is like the token, right? There is no utility, there's no game. And what they've done incredibly well is they've activated an army of evangelists so that every time somebody buys into a meme coin, they feel like they're a part of something that they want other people to be a part of as well. Of course, that helps pump their bags. Price goes up, but they're now a part of something. And when you make the token the product, or the NFT the product, there's something really interesting to that there's not a huge promise of other future financial rewards unless that product becomes more and more popular. And so it's an interesting thought experiment. I've tried to reverse engineer that back into how do we do that with a game? How do we basically build an army of evangelists? We should have, I always think that when we have tokens and we also have a utility for them in a game, and then the game gives them the ability to earn more of that as long as there's a lot of economic decisions that need to be made in there, because anytime something can be gamed, it will be gamed. There's a lot of there's a lot more complexity, but there's a lot more to work with. There's a lot more material to work with to build value as well, because you have not only everything that a meme coin has, but you also have everything that a game has. And so and an NFT project, and trying to work all those together. Of course, there's, like I said, there's unique challenges that come from that as well. But I do think there's a lot to be learned from, when I think of community, not just as like a Discord community where we can all get in and talk about Honeyland. I think that's fun. I think that's amazing. But that's not what makes Bored Ape Discord is not what makes Bored Apes so special. The reason I know about Bored Apes is because they have a community of evangelists who post as their PFP, talk about it all the time, that launch businesses around it, that they basically take that and their goal is to spread the word across the globe. And I think a lot of games outside of purely the financial gain have found an inability to do that really, really well. I think that the financial gain is the main part of most games for most people. And if they believe it can pump their bags, that's something that they're happy to do. But how do we get people that are just I think Pudgy's has done a great job of this in everything they do. People just love the Pudgy IP attached to anything that they launch, not because of the financial necessarily gain or anything like that, but because they're a part of a club. It's cute, it's friendly IP, it's world, they can see it at Target, and they've just done an incredible job of building these evangelists. And I think it helps them launch every next thing, whether it's Abstract Chain or Pengu or whatever games they're launching in the future. And so, yeah, I think community is really important, but we have to think about communities I am trying to think of community not as a place where people can go to share thoughts with each other internally, but how people from my community can be activated to go bring other people in. It's about growing the community, not just about having strengthening the community. And so I think that's something that is, that's kind of the way that we approach community, or I should say it's the way that we are starting to approach community in an entirely different way based on what I think we've learned from meme coins, which provides a ton of value back.
Yeah, I think, you made a lot of good points. I think Pudgy is actually a really good example of, maybe apes are probably on the side of the spectrum that, they did a lot of stuff to facilitate the community, but the community just became, cult-like and ridiculously evangelized and had so much success because of that. And yeah, there was a lot of celebrity stuff and, MoonPay and all that fun stuff. But I think that community did a great job, maybe despite some of the things that Yuga and the organizers did. I think Pudgy is kind of the opposite. Pudgy is probably, in my opinion, it's definitely in my opinion, but probably one of the projects, if not the project, with the best social media team in all of crypto. And they have found kind of the core to creating viral content and just content that people can associate with, whether they're part of the club or not. I've gotten Pudgy Penguin content shared with me by people who don't even know what a cryptocurrency is. And so I think that, Pudgy, maybe they're a little less evangelized than apes are, but I think that they are doing such a good job promoting the IP and really expanding the IP that it makes it a lot easier to to say, oh yeah, this is Pudgy Penguin, this is the group I'm part of, which is cool, and I totally agree. It's a more familiar, likable family IP that has a lot of potential. And so yeah, sorry. Let's jump over to Apex because I don't want to take all the last amount of time we have.
I think you guys touched on a lot of cool points. When I first read that message in the brief, like the first thing I thought about, like how is community different in crypto compared to like non-crypto is, for me it's like how early it comes into play. Because like a lot of Web2 games, right? It's really just you kind of start building a community when you have like the first release of your game. And in crypto, it's often you have mints, you have fundraising announcement, like people, it's a lot more public, and because things are a lot more public, and you have assets live early on, and you have stakeholders so early on, you inevitably are kind of building a community, which is quite interesting because like in our case, we had a mint a few years ago which was mainly made around like we were working on a different kind of game type before, and then we scratched the idea and kind of pivoted in a different direction. So we had a mint very early on, and like it was like 2 3 years ago, and we still haven't released our game yet. But of course, as soon as you start having a mint, right, you have a community which you want to entertain, you want to do events, you want to build, you want to maybe get their feedback, just make them happy. So that's quite interesting because this is like where like normal studios might be fully committed on just focusing on the game and polishing that, maybe, like marketing wise, they're working on a trailer and on activations compared to crypto, where your game might be a year to 2 3 years out, but you're already kind of building a lot in public. You're doing community activations, events, you might even go to conferences and have like some events there. Like it's slightly different to normal studios, which makes it interesting and can be very powerful because there's some communities, like you touched on them already, which completely kind of define the success of the companies basically. And it can be very like a strong point if you're able to build a solid community before you launch a game, because that's like your core user base. Those are like all super fans, potential super fans you're already like onboarding. So yeah, like that was like the first thing I thought of when hearing that question.
Yeah, 100%. I think that the galvanizing that core community, just getting people who believe in what you're doing, and honestly getting validation, right? Having people who are discerning from all over the world come to you and say, hey, not only is this worth my time and attention, this is worth my money. I think is reassuring that the idea that you're trying to build may have mainstream appeal. I know that we had kind of that aha moment when Jose released the Satoshi superhero, and we said, wow, originally Jose was creating Wonder Woman NFTs and things like that. And people were buying them, but we were always like, well, this might be because it's Wonder Woman, and people like Wonder Woman. But when we released this Satoshi superhero and started working on that and saw the kind of the amount of people who fell in love with this idea of a superhero representing, the evolution of Satoshi and what that could become, that definitely inspired us to build in that direction. And I think that was a large part of why we were able to build our core community in those early days. And I think every IP needs to kind of find their niche and figure out who their market is. But actually, I know, Spencer, I think we have a winner of the giveaway. So let's announce that, and then we can wrap things up.
Yes, we do. The winner this week of 5 Satoshi's Crystals is Steph, or Your Software Engineer. Congratulations. In order to claim your prize, please go to game.legions2029.com, create a free account, and then send the Satoshiverse account a DM with your username, and we will drop those into your account. Nick, I will pass it back to you to close this out.
Amazing. Well, congratulations to the winner, Steph. Looks like you're reacting, so you got the message. Looking forward to getting you into the game. Anyone else? So we're going to close out now. Just what we'll do is just everyone, if you want to give like a quick 1-minute outro, let people know where to find you, how to play the game. For us, if you weren't here at the beginning of the spaces, we are Satoshiverse, and we have our Legions 2029 game. It is a free-to-play action roguelike RPG with hack and slash mechanics. All the information, including the gameplay video, is in the link above. All you have to do is follow the download instructions, and you will be able to play the game. But jump into the Discord if you have any issues connecting. We're definitely have a ton of initiatives right now, and we've got a bunch more coming up with speedrun contests and cash prizes. So now's a great time to start leveling up your character so that you can participate in those as we get ready to launch season 2 of our game. So lots more to come. Definitely excited. I will say personally, thank you so much to both of our speakers. today. I know you are all busy, and I know that these can take a lot of time out of people's days. So thank you for being here with us. It was a great conversation. Really enjoyed having very diverse insights on the space. And yeah, looking forward to seeing how you guys continue to build and seeing if there's opportunities to collaborate. But either way, thank you so much. What we'll do is we'll start with Corey, and then we'll go to Apex for the outros. But yeah, please let everyone know where to find you and how they can participate. And then once you guys are done, I will wrap up the space.
Yeah, badass, man. Hey, thanks so much for having us. So honey.land, that's our website. You can find everything there, all of our socials. We do a really good job on Medium as well. We're really trying to cater, not just to the Web3 Discord audience, but really to anybody. And so we've got tons of stuff there. I'll point out one thing, which is I just did my annual vision keynote. So if you want to get an idea of kind of like, there's kind of a victory lap for everything that we did in 2024, but really then looking out to like where we see the future of Web3 gaming and what we're building into at Hexagon Studios throughout this rest of this year for 2025. There's a Medium article. So if you go to honey.land, if you go scroll all the way to the bottom, you'll see all of our links, find Medium, look for my vision keynote. I think that'll kind of be the best place that you can find out about us. And of course, links to everything. The other thing that I'll mention, I talked about kind of, that I see Web3 gaming as being far more than just like tokenized assets in a first-person shooter or MOBA or things like that. We're really building into like what we call hyper-casual degen experiences in games, and so I think that's a huge part of what make Pump.Fun and a lot of these others that I talked about really, really successful. We just stood up yesterday a Super Bowl contest. So if you're somebody who's going to watch the big game and you want kind of to have a little bit of something to root for, you can go to predict6.gg. You can also, if you just look in my, if you look at my Twitter, I just posted kind of my picks, and you're just trying to predict the outcome of like 6 Super Bowl events. What will Kendrick Lamar's first song be? Will it land on heads or tails? Who will be the MVP? Every entry is 0.001 soul, so like a quarter is what it cost you. It's really, really cheap to enter. But there's right now, I think like a 23 soul jackpot that will continue to climb. So every new entry continues to add to that. It's a progressive jackpot. So if you want to have a little bit of fun, listen, you aren't limited to one entry. You can put 10 entries or 100 entries if you want to have a little bit more skin in the game for each one. But yeah, it's really cool. That'll be a progressive jackpot. We're just getting it off the ground. We're hoping that it gets to 50, 60, 70 soul by the time we hit kickoff. And so predict6.gg, and that's kind of a launch into our a second kind of gaming ecosystem we're building outside of Honeyland called Cook.Fun, which is kind of a degen arcade. So you've got Honeyland, this awesome play and earn game. We've got some really cool things. The Vision keynote highlights a ton of that. And then if you're into kind of a degen arcade, go follow us on Cook.Fun, or you can participate in Predict6 right now. So, all right, I appreciate you letting me be here, man. This is really fun.
Yeah, thanks for having me too. I think as I mentioned earlier, we have a collector's campaign live right now, which if you're holding any kind of NFTs, there's like, I think over 150 eligible collections. So you can sign up to the campaign, connect your wallet, and then you're getting some free stuff from us, which ranges from card packs, something we can't announce yet, if you understand what I mean, and also potential entries to win blueprints, which are like our rarest asset in our ecosystem. So yeah, like if you hold any NFTs, you can sign up. It's free. You get some free goodies from us. The link to it's on our website, which is on the Project O account in the bio. Yeah,
I love it.
appreciate it.
That's awesome. Well, definitely, again, thank you guys for joining. I will wrap things up. There's like a 30-second delay, so I'm going to wrap things up now, but it'll wait.